and welcome back to the Dubai Real Estate Unplugged. My friend Paul is having a holiday this month, and so I decided that I'm going to invite a guest. And my guest today is one of my clients, or I would say that he's becoming a friend slowly and gradually, and very lovely of him to agree to come in and make a podcast with me. And here he is. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Mr. Minesh Patney.
Hi, Stephen. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, well, thank you for coming. So I'd like you to maybe just start by sharing a little bit about your background and why you came to Dubai.
Okay.
How we met.
Yeah, sure. How we met. In terms of my background, I'm in the UK, born to immigrants who came over from Kenya, and they were, children of Indian descendants. So I was born in the UK. I've grown up there, spent all my life living there. I've had my own business there. I still have my own businesses there, doing a variety related to online and healthcare, online consultations as well as supplements and that sort of thing. I have offices in India as well as the UK, and I decided it was the right time to move to Dubai with a number of factors taken into account.
How long did that process start? When does it start? You thinking, right, I'm going to come and move to Dubai?
I think it started brewing about 2 years ago when I noticed how difficult it was with regulations in the UK affecting all sorts of different things. So from properties through to how you run your company, a number of things were getting to me. Then on top of that, I've come here with my mother, who's 80, and she has Alzheimer's. So I take care of her. And I always felt, I should stick around the UK because it'll be better for her, for healthcare, etc. So the whole process, at that point, 2 years ago, I was sort of toying with the idea. Then about a year ago, the sort of nail in the coffin was getting text messages from the hospital saying that for the fourth time, one of her appointments has been cancelled. And that's when I realised to say, well, you were wrong thinking that you should hang around in the UK. Let's look elsewhere. And then I started looking into where I should go in the world, and ended up choosing Dubai.
How's she doing?
She's well, thank you. Yeah, and she's actually...
Does she mind the heat?
Funny enough, she goes and sits in the garden in the blazing sun, which and she sort of tells me off to say, well, I'm used to it because I was born in Africa.
Has she used the pool?
She hasn't, no. So, but, I sort of drag her back in every now and then. But overall, yeah, she's happy here.
Brilliant. And you touched there, and you have some properties in the UK. What does that look like?
So I've got a portfolio of properties in and around mostly the sort of Crystal Palace area, because that's where I grew up. And I've built on that. So I sort of, as my business.
Are these buy-to-lets?
Buy-to-lets. So basically.
Commercial or residential?
All of them are residential.
Okay.
I bought them over the course of between, say, 2007 to 2011, I think was the last one, or 2013. And I've rented them out all these years. But, now it's extremely difficult to be a landlord.
In what way?
First, they don't want landlords in the country. They're vilified.
Right.
And what I mean by that is if you look at the regulations that are affecting landlords, they want landlords to do absolutely everything and take that responsibility away from the state. That's one aspect. Then there was, in recent times, they got rid of mortgage interest relief. So now you've got to pay the tax on the whole rent subject to the other expenses, the sort of running costs. And here I am, just a simple landlord with happy tenants, with good properties, and just getting bludgeoned by the government. And I felt enough's enough.
And what are you going to do about those properties now you're in Dubai?
So I did my homework prior to coming here in terms of, how can I optimize, how I sort of deal with these properties, and came across one of the tax laws which affect non-residents. So when you're a non-resident of the UK, then you can basically sell your properties in the UK. You still got to pay the CGT on them.
CGT?
The capital gains tax. You still got to pay it on them. And they've got rid of most of the allowances. But one thing that's still left in there is the fact that you might have bought a property for, say, 200,000 back in 2010. The magical date, I think, is the 6th of April 2015.
Yes, that's correct.
So what basically the government is saying is, okay, it used to be the case that non-residents, if you're a UK non-tax resident, you can sell them and not pay any tax on them. And then they changed it to say, okay, we will still charge you tax, but your property will be rebiased based on the value of the 6th of April 2015. So therefore, you might have bought it for 200 grand, and on that date in 2015, it might be worth 400. And today it's 450. You're only then going to be liable on the tax on the 50 grand.
Okay.
So, the proviso is, though, that I don't become a UK tax resident for the next at least 5 years.
So are you going to sell all those properties?
And the plan is to sell them all.
And how's that going?
So I've already put about 4 on the market as of last week. And there's more to follow. So, the idea is just to get rid of everything, which is sad, but it's the only option left to me, considering everything.
It's good for me, hopefully.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you're a landlord in the UK, and you're exiting all those. What sort of percentage or yields were you getting on your properties? Do you have that figure?
The yields towards the end, the rents went up, but then...
You mean post-COVID?
Yeah, rents went up post-COVID. Even before that, rents were reasonable in London. You're looking at about 4 to 5%. Not in central London, but on the suburbs. And I was still holding on to that. The issue is that, okay, after making all of that, you're now clobbered with that tax. So really, what's the yield? It's probably half that if you're lucky.
Right. And here you are in Dubai.
Yeah.
And what initially, you've invested in a few properties here in Dubai already. You've only been here how long? Was
4 months.
4 months, yeah. And you've been spending your money.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. What initially? Why off-plan properties? What's your?
I think a number of factors came into play. I think ready-made, readily available properties. Yeah, sure, they're there. I don't understand enough about them yet to get involved. I will be getting involved with those, but I think on that, it needs a lot more due diligence. I think with off-plan, it's quite a simple approach to it that I take. I know that you're going to have investors who'll sit there and do various trends and analysis, etc., etc. You can go on forever and never buy anything. I'm of the opinion that first and foremost is build relationships with good agents or consultants that you can trust. Build that trust. Let them sort of show you the way. Do your own little bit of homework. But on the whole, then try and pick a balance of good developer, good location, good community, and then the finishing of what it is that they're going to be selling you and what they're going to deliver.
You mentioned location there. Do you think location is really important?
I think less so. If you look at in
comparison to the UK.
Yeah, even the UK, anywhere near a train or tube station, people snap up because it's all about getting into central London.
We don't have that here.
We don't have that here. No. Not only that, I think when I used to come here, and prior to coming over in December to sort out all my visa stuff, I hadn't come for 7 years. So it's a big gap. Otherwise, I used to come every 6 months on the way back from my India offices. So if you look at when I came in December, I looked at the first location that popped in my head was Marina. And I know that you'd probably get a lot of people that would think that from outside of the UAE. Yeah. And I used to think that. So I started looking around Marina to say, okay, what's it like? And then started seeing that there's a lot more to it than meets the eye. Location's important, but I think the most important thing is how fast you can get around to key areas of Dubai. And the infrastructure here is amazing in terms of the motorways or highways, whichever way you pick. And the metro, although it's not fully everywhere, it's getting there.
Yes.
And what I like is the fact that they're committed to developing that further in a relatively short space of time. So even if you've bought a property which, I don't know, doesn't have a metro link at the moment, you'll be pretty confident that within a few years something will pop up there.
Yeah, the marina. I get. You're right. I mean, I think first timers who get in contact with me from overseas, the marina's done such an amazing job of putting Dubai on the map, and a lot of people have been here on holiday, so they've stayed in or around the marina, so they know it. There's lots of nice restaurants, cafes, etc.
Yeah.
What is it about the marina that you think is good and bad? The pros and cons of living in the marina.
I think the good is familiarity. For those that have been to Dubai before, you know it, you sort of remember it. It's quite iconic, similarly to the Palm. The bad, I don't think it's that bad. I would still live there, but I just think there are better places for someone like me to live. And again, it comes down to choice of what it is that you're looking for in a place to stay. I think there's a lot of buildings there. There's a lot of old buildings there. Sure, they're going to pop up with new ones, but that was one of the sort of first areas to build all these blocks of apartments. And so, the planning may not be as good as other areas, I think.
Yeah. No, it was early days of real estate in Dubai. Yeah. And I think if they had their chance again, it wouldn't look like that. It would look more like Dubai Creek Harbour or Mina Rashid and Yachts and Marina, etc. Something more.
Hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? Yeah.
And money as well, because at the time probably there wasn't a great deal of cash flowing around in Dubai at that time, and I think everybody was finding their way. But I think the latest projects these days are far better than what you would have found.
And it's funny, I was going to buy something in the marina back in 2007.
Do you remember where?
I can't remember, but I remember the price, and it was a 2-bedroom apartment. It was about 250 grand.
Okay.
And at the time I was looking at it and I was hearing a lot of people flipping properties here. And I just didn't feel right.
In 07, this was?
07, 08, around
just
then.
Before, yeah.
And I just thought, maybe I've missed the boat, or there's something that just didn't sit right with me at that time. And instead I invested in Egypt. Because I used to go there quite a lot. But then that turned out to be the bad investment because, you've had all sorts of, military takeovers and various other activities that have devalued the whole country. Sadly, it's a beautiful country. But then I wished that I had put the money back in Dubai in those days.
Brilliant. So you've moved to Dubai 4 months ago. You made that big decision a couple of years ago. You're here. What's it been like from literally day one to where you are today? Forget about investing in property, just generally life, how you found an apartment, visa situation, etc. What have you had to do?
So, in terms of finding a place, that process started back in sort of December, January. I looked at a few areas, but what I was trying to do was to say, okay, how do I mimic how I live back in the UK? Where my house still is in the UK is in a place called West Wickham, very leafy suburb, lots of parks, dog friendly because I've got a dog who's with me. And so that it would give me the best chances of, in a way, making it out here and not feeling homesick. So I tried to replicate that, and I thought, okay, where can I go, which is really green, and I don't need a car to go to the shops, because even though I love cars, I like to be able to just walk to where I want to get to. And I ended up finding a place, which is called the Meadows, which is actually, I think, Emar's first villa project, one of the first ones.
Definitely.
And it's great because location-wise, I can get around everywhere, and it's very green. I actually don't feel I'm in the traditional sense of Dubai as I've always perceived it, just high tower blocks. and I enjoy it there. So, in my first 4 months that I've been there, I love the fact that it's a home from home in a way. And I've even got like a Waitrose there and a Fitness First and all the things that I'm familiar with.
And you can walk the dog.
I can walk the dog.
And you can walk to a cafe.
Everything's there.
Because we've met.
Yeah.
At a cafe.
Costa Coffee just there.
Was it Costa?
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
That is where we went. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and what about the visa situation? How have you dealt with that?
So I've opened a company here, and that was quite straightforward. I used who's become a good friend of mine. I won't mention names, but he was a good friend, good help to me in terms of sorting out a company, and then getting visas off the back of that for myself, my sister who's also moved here, my mother. Luckily, my dog doesn't need a visa. So,
talking about that, dogs. I mean, I know it's not to be too flippant. Is it easy to get a dog over here? From
Surprisingly, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was funny because I thought, oh my God, like here we go. This is going to be really hard. They're going to want to put him in quarantine, and what if I don't get him back, and all the rest of it. But no, I used an agent that worked with people both ends, and they took him on the morning. Our flight was at 7:30 in the evening. They took him in the morning, looked after him, vet checked him over. And he boarded the same flight as us. And when we landed here, 3 hours later, they delivered him to our door.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And he was not too traumatized?
No, he was fine.
Very good. So, Minesh, from the sounds of it, you're kind of semi-retired here in Dubai. And I know that I speak to a lot of people similar to you who are thinking about coming to move here. And one of the questions I get, because it's very difficult for me to answer this question because I live here and I'm very familiar with the place, is you're brand new to the country. You've been here 4 months. What do you do all day? If you're semi-retired. I know you've got a dog and you've got your mum and you've got various other things.
I look after my mum, I look after my dog, plus I go to the gym, not that you can tell, but then on top of that, I've got a passion for cars, classic cars.
Okay.
So I'm sort of busy either buying cars or getting them fixed up or getting them ready to be driven here, which again is another relatively easy process to bring my cars over. I brought 6 cars over from the UK.
Any more to come?
I've just bought another one from London and that's going to come over in the next month or 2.
Okay. And is that you say it's quite easy, but is it expensive to do?
I think, it costs between 3 and 5 grand.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
You've got to pay, sterling, because I still think in sterling.
Yeah.
And I'm sure if you give me another few months or a year,
No, you won't. You'll still think in sterling. I still look at sandwiches and think that costs 6 quid. Yeah.
And basically, it's relatively straightforward. Again, deploying an agent, you've got to pay an import duty, which isn't much. And you've got to test the cars and that's it. You're ready to go.
We should say, just for the benefit of everyone, it has to be left-hand drive unless it's a classic car.
Yeah, it has to be. Right? Yeah, the car has to be a left-hand drive unless it's over 30 years old.
That's it. I do know people who have brought their cars from the UK and have not been able to use them.
Well, you can bring them over, you just can't drive.
Yeah, you can just leave them in the drive.
Look at them.
Yeah, if they're classic car, maybe that's something you want to do, put it in your living room or something. I have seen cars in living rooms on what do you call it?
So I've still left some cars behind.
Right.
One of them won't qualify because it's not quite 30 years old. I'd love to have it here, but I just said to myself, okay, let's bring over these 6, and then we'll look at the others later on.
Where are you going to put them on?
So again, I've made a good contact here back in December, a chap that specialises in storage and classic cars, and he sort of takes care of them for me. It's nominal cost. It's cheaper than what I'm paying for storage back home.
Okay. That's what, you go along and have a look at them every now and again?
Yeah.
And drive them? Or no, you can't drive
them.
Yeah,
so the first of the cars I've just got registered because I want to get all of them registered, but what I felt was 2 things. One, I need to get familiar with driving here and get used to the nuances of driving before I take a collectible car out.
Right.
And the other is a lot of the cars I've got don't have AC.
Right.
So they're probably not ideal for the summer months.
I couldn't imagine. I can't imagine. Yeah. Okay, so going back to property and investing here in Dubai. What's your sort of top advice to someone in the UK or in Europe or overseas, basically, who's thinking about coming to Dubai and investing?
I think it doesn't need someone like me to push Dubai, because I think that Dubai, once you've been here, even on a holiday, or you've seen it on YouTube, etc., you can see what it's got to offer. The only sort of advice or the way I would approach it is come here, come and have a look, get a feel of the land. You will be surprised with how much it changes. If you might have come here 5 years ago, but it's changed a lot since then.
Yeah, absolutely.
My friend lives at the beginning of the Shoreline Apartments on the Palm, and I've been seeing him here for many years. And imagine I've not been here for 7 years, and he's told me, okay, meet me at the hotel opposite where I live. And I remember there was nothing there. This time around, I've gone there thinking, why has he got me to come there? And I've seen there's a whole row of hotels and bars and restaurants, etc. So I think a good piece of advice would be come over, get familiar with the area. I know some people will just buy without coming over or seeing anything, but it just depends on your appetite for how you feel about making a transaction.
Yeah. So what do you like about Dubai then?
I think what I've really admired, the first and foremost thing that I've admired is the vision of Your Highness, who runs the country like a corporation. Okay, and I wish that more people could be like that around the world, where they're saying, okay, we want to be number one in everything, and it's got a vision to do it. You see that he does it, and I love that. And there's no obstructions. If you see a problem, pretty much, let's say there was a road there or something that wasn't right, within a year it will be fixed. And that's what I love. Back home, if there's a problem, they'll think about it for 2 years and think, will we lose our votes if we put it forward? And I think that's what I love. They get on with it here.
What else?
The other factors I'd say is everyday stuff. I find the majority of things you can find on an app here. On one app, you can organise for a handyman to come over. At the same time, you can even get a haircut if you wanted on the same app. There's so many. The convenience factor is strong, and it's little things sometimes, like going to the supermarket. And back home, I mean, I grew up in the 80s. That's when I was a kid, and I remember I was trained on checkouts and the likes of Sainsbury's and Homebase, etc. And the level of service has to be a certain standard back then. And increasingly, I was getting frustrated back home because, they scan. You're lucky, first of all, if you get a person at the checkout, because now they're all this self-service. But if they do, they just scan it and look at you. And I wasn't, I'm not accustomed to that from when I grew up. And I've come here and I'm finding there's people in the shop that are ready to help you. There's people on the checkouts. Sure, you've got some self-service if you want it, but they're really helpful. They're friendly. It's how I used to be trained, and how I was used to back home is how I find it here.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I actually I was back in the UK about a month ago, and I went to a very large, well-known supermarket.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe how dirty it was.
Yeah.
How disorganized it was, and no one to help me.
No pride.
Yeah. Yeah, it's awful.
And that never used to be the case,
no.
When I was growing up.
Yeah. I mean, first world problem and everything, but I mean, when it's very easy for all of us to live here in Dubai and compare everything to wherever else you come from in the world, and obviously say that everything's better, but it's just simple things like that. I agree that it makes your life a lot easier.
And the thing is that if you look at the last few years when I was sort of thinking, should I move? Shouldn't I move? Part of you still holds on to the old memories of how things were. And you sort of think, oh, that was good.
Or like me, you forget, of course.
Or you forget, and I'm forgetting a lot as well. But in terms of, you think, okay, we'll go back to that.
Yeah.
But it just keeps getting worse.
Yeah.
Like a simple thing. I mean, it's not often nowadays that I would have drove down, say, Park Lane or somewhere. But went there, and what used to be a good, decent, wide road is now like a lane for cyclists, lane for buses. In fact, that takes what used to be 3 lanes is now 1 for cars, and they're all sat there in traffic. And the whole point is pollution. Well, aren't you getting more pollution with the more stuff there? So it's just the rules and things have changed. And I feel like, okay, maybe it's me that, I'm looking too much into it, but it's all these little things add up. And I love the country. I still love the UK, but I love it for what it used to be rather than what it's become.
Right.
I'm hopeful that one day it will change, but I just can't see it.
So rather than saying about the bad things, what sort of challenges have you had moving over here?
Challenges here, I'd say, mostly are to do with getting used to timing. So
what do you mean? Exactly. I know exactly what you mean, but just explain that one a bit more.
Timing is in when you've got an appointment or someone's going to come round at 2:00 to, I don't know, look at your air conditioning. It won't pitch up until 3, for example. That sort of thing can be.
I won't say anything.
And for them it's normal.
Yeah.
Or, one instance was I was out there, I was having a friend over, we went for a coffee, and I was expecting this delivery to come, and it never came. And then suddenly at the last minute it says, okay, we're here now. And, that sort of thing can be a bit hard to get used to. But back home, it's good in terms of...
Is it?
Infrastructure and logistics. Yeah, you order something, it tells you what time roughly you're going to get it.
That's true. Yeah. No, they do expect you to be waiting at home all day for whatever it is, whether it's a work one or a delivery, etc. Yeah, I've thought about that. What other challenges have you used? What about the heat?
The heat, definitely. It's been a challenge. I think the good thing is you don't have to live here the whole year.
Right.
So I'm thinking for next year that for, say, 2 or 3 months, I might, go away and go somewhere a bit more cooler with the dog and with my mum. But, I'm getting through this summer. I'm dealing with it. But that's the challenge. It
has been exceptionally hot especially in the last couple of weeks. I've been here 21 years, and I'm sure it has been as this hot, but you kind of forget, especially when we have such amazing winters, and sort of up till about April, May, the weather's amazing, and then all of a sudden you get humidity and heat.
I think if you look at, you've just got to adjust yourself and your life around that. Yeah. It's not that I would really an outdoor person all day, every day,
right?
But it just little things like walking the dog.
Yeah.
When I got here, I was taking him out at about 7 in the morning, and it was fine. And now it's become 5 a.m.
Yeah.
And things like that. And that's just for a brief period, and then it will return back.
Yeah. So it's no worse than raining in the UK or snow.
Well, the other side to that was, the colder, you've got to wrap up galore and go out and just weather it yourself. The dog won't mind, but, you'll freeze yourself.
True. You talked about your mother and her health and the challenges you've had in the UK. Where are you with that here in Dubai? What's the change? What's the difference here?
The difference here is, number one thing, and this was again part of the homework I was doing before moving here, and I was shocked to see that, the hospitals that she used back home, a lot of them are here already as brands. So, for example, she used to go to King's College Hospital in Denmark Hill. This is King's College Hospital here.
There's a couple, I think, aren't there?
Yeah.
There's one in the Marina. I think there's one in Dubai Hills.
Correct. And I was a patient of Moorfields in Old Street, the eye hospital.
Yeah, I know it well.
And I made an appointment, and I've got straight in. I know you're paying for it, or rather maybe via direct pay or via insurance, but you're straight in. It doesn't cost an arm and a leg.
Yeah.
And you see a superior consultant.
I'll tell you the big difference as well for me is that when they say come at 10 o'clock, you get there at 5 to 10 to do your paperwork, and you're seen at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
And I don't remember that ever happening in any medical institution in the UK.
If you look, Stephen, late March is when I came here. The middle of March, I had my last appointment with Moorfields. They've now moved it, they put a branch in Croydon, right, the old Mayday Hospital. Had my appointment there. It was for
my sister was born there. That's it.
Really?
Thornton Heath, actually.
Yeah, that's right.
Thornton Heath, not Croydon. Yeah.
So 2 p.m.
She won't thank me for telling people that.
She's been telling them something
If
else.
anybody knows Thornton Heath, it's not. It's not.
Yeah, it's not one you brag about, but
No.
for me, if you've grown up in that area, you don't feel no way. If you look at my appointment's time was 1:00, and and I knew I wanted to finish up so I can get back to look after Mum. And the help, limited help we did have over there, she was leaving at a certain time. So I thought, okay, by maybe 2:30, 3:00, I'll get back home. And the relevance of this is I was still sat there at 5 p.m. waiting, and I asked them to say, well, when am I going to be seen? They said, well, you'll see when you're seen.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm done. Forget the appointment. I'm going now.
Wow.
And I just knew that let's just book an appointment here. Took me like 2 minutes and I was in.
And the quality of care that you found here, has that been
Exceptional.
any good?
Exceptional. And they actually, again, I hark back to the old days in the UK. I don't know if you remember the time when you see your doctor, they spend a bit of time with you, getting to understand you and what's happening.
I don't know that it's the doctor's fault. It's definitely the system's fault.
It's the system.
Yeah.
It's not the doctor, but I use that as an example to say, well, I'm used to now. First of all, you won't get an appointment unless you're a very severe state.
Yeah.
But here, what I found was refreshing was I had an appointment for my mum to see a GP. I took her there thinking, okay, this will be 10, 15 minutes. Because you're used to that. You're conditioned in the recent years that this is what it is. And she's marvellous, an American doctor. She took the time with Mum, got to know her, got to understand the habits, then looked at her list of medicines and said she doesn't need to be on half of these things.
Wow.
So, in that sense, I felt, wow, okay, why is it so much different here? And I understand it's a lot to do with budgets and money, and it's just there's so many people to see back home. But if I look at it from here, from this perspective, you go in, you can book an appointment, you see someone really good, doesn't cost a fortune, they give you genuinely good advice. I'm not saying everybody, because I've not dealt with every specialist here, but for the experience I've had in the 4 months I've been here has been exceptional.
Well, if you go back to, you said at the beginning, and I totally agree with you, and I tell a lot of people this, trying to explain the setup here in Dubai. It's a corporation.
Yeah.
And what you find is things like hospitals and schools, etc. They are corporations. They are run as businesses. And as such, they have to deliver to their
Small
clients.
thing, Stephen.
Yeah.
Yesterday, my dog's called Brexit.
Yes.
You've met, a golden retriever. Yesterday he had his grooming appointment. Had his grooming, brought him back home, and this morning I've got a text saying, how is he, everything good? There was nothing wrong with him, but they were just checking in. And that level of service I appreciate.
Yeah. It's not all good. It's not all good.
Well,
it's mostly good, and I think
you can only base it on your own experiences.
Yeah, of course. No. I mean, look, I don't want to paint. There's not all roses here.
Yeah.
There are some things that need improving, but there's definitely a lot of great things. Let's go back to property, because that's what we're here to speak about. And so you've invested in a few properties here in Dubai, and they've been off plan, all of them. I think so far.
Yeah.
And what criteria do you consider, or what strategy do you have when you're choosing a property in Dubai?
I don't really have one.
Okay.
I don't really have one in the traditional sense. I mean, you could fill this room with 10 people and ask them, they'll all sit there and produce documents over strategies on how to buy. I look at it and I say, okay, are the key fundamentals there? Because I just don't think, if you've got something that's of good quality, a good developer, you've seen the finishes that they come up with, and they've got some form of track record in terms of other places that they've made, I'd say that's good enough for me. Even if that means I pay a little bit more than perhaps if you look at the price per square foot surrounding it, if it's that good, it will hold its value, in the time going forward. So I look at, is it really good value? Is it good value for money from a perspective of how it's built, its amenities, what it's close to, the community, or what it is that they've got in plan? for the whole master plan of that area.
Price-wise, have you stuck to a specific budget on each property, or have you made that quite varied as well?
Well, I'm looking predominantly at, say, 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms, the occasional 3 bed as well. But apartments, I bought 1 villa as well off plan. But again, on that, you can compare each one. They've got different prices per square foot. They're all of a very good level of quality. At least, I haven't seen it yet. That's the danger with off plan. But then at the same time, I've looked at the things that they've done before, and I'd say I'm quite happy with that and what it represents. And would I want to stay there? Would someone want to stay there? Once it's built. So these are factors. I'm undecided as to what I will do with them. I may sell them when they're complete. I may rent them out. I may do short-term rentals. There's no hard and fast rule that I've got. I don't necessarily have a plan, and that might disappoint you and others to say, well, you should plan for everything. But I sort of
I think making a plan is a good thing when you're buying property, but at the same time you have to also assume that things might change because of the market. The market conditions are going to change. You talk about doing long-term, short-term, flipping, etc. There might come a time where to flip is by far the best thing to do. And you've got no hassle with landlords, with tenants, etc. And then we've seen a change with certain areas and certain types of apartments now and houses where it used to be great for short term, but now it's better for long term because the rents have increased and the costs of ownership have changed. So it's all about keeping an open mind.
Keep an open mind, but keep the fundamentals.
Yes.
Of is it good quality? Is it? Although location's not the most important thing, it's one of the factors. What's it near? What are they going to be doing around there? These are the factors I've sort of looked at, and I'd say, okay, then go with it. Because even if you pay a little bit more than, you're going to always get people that will say, oh, you paid a bit too much and this, that, the other. I had that back home in the UK. I got some great deals. I got some not so great deals. But if you look at over a period of time, let's say 3, 4, 5 years or longer, they all work out. So you'll spend, if you spend too much time on the due diligence, first of all, we don't have a crystal ball. We've got likelihood of things happening. So I just go with it and say, okay, great developer, good location, great concepts. Things like, for example, things that where you've come in handy is by saying, okay, go for this type of floor or view. And again, having somebody that's got experience and knowledge of that definitely helps.
And you bought in the same building as me?
Yeah, because you bought.
Oh, no. Really?
Yeah. Because if it's good enough for you, I'd be mad to think I would know any more.
I think my floor's higher than yours, though.
We're going to swap.
We'll see. So, okay. So one of the things you mentioned, you bought a villa.
Yeah.
And villa isn't always on people's radar when they talk about investment. They talk about 1, 2 beds because of rent and ease of cost of entry, etc. Your villa, I happen to know which villa it is, obviously, because I helped you buy it. But when you look at the strategy on that, I've got a couple of different answers for you if you ask me what is going to be good for it. But why have you bought that villa?
I was looking at it to say, okay, what is where is it? What is their plan for it? And I looked at a lot of the master community. Half of it's already there before the villas, which is unusual, before they're even built. I looked at things like the quality of the finishes within it. I looked at what they've got in mind for the theme of the place. Apparently there's going to be like gazelles and stuff running around. I love the nature aspect, and that's what I think. Again, where I live now, if you look, I live in a very leafy area. I love the whole nature side of things, so that helped. The fact that there's going to be underground car parking for my cars, that's helped. All these various factors I looked at, finishing, plus the fact that payment plans are good. So add all of that together, and
So do you think you're going to live there?
I might live there. I said I will wait and see until it's built, then decide.
One of the things that I always discuss with people is that you've got to look at properties and look at all the different exit strategies before you decide on whether it's the right thing for you. And one of those exit strategies is, if push came to shove, could I live there?
Yeah.
And I think that's certainly from my point of view, when I'm buying, that's certainly one of the things I think about, because who knows what's going to happen.
If you look at the majority of, if not all of the things that I bought, even apartments, that's been, again, an overriding factor.
Yeah.
Would I live there?
Yeah.
If all else went belly up, could I go and live there? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I looked at why would I live there? What are the things that would appeal to me? And the villa, there's probably at this point, I'd say 80% chance I'm going to live there. But again, I'm not someone to say, okay, that's definitely what I'm doing. But that's at the moment, that's where I would like to.
The thing is, Minesh, if you want to live there, someone else will want to live there.
Sure.
Someone like you will want to live there. Well, that's a good sign, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, that's just look at it that way, because you can get bogged down with all sorts of stats. And you sometimes can miss the point of what it is that you're buying into.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's the way the market has been moving over the last few years, especially since COVID. It's almost, you can't go wrong, but you could if you go. There's certain developers who are building stuff that is probably more over the market than it should be.
But again, the importance there is develop relationships, not with a whole host of brokers or consultants and.
You can call us what
I don't know what
you can call me anything you like, as long as you keep buying property off me.
But what the point being, form a relationship with limited amount, get to know people and see who you can trust.
Yeah.
Because they're going to know a lot more than you do. Sure, they may have a vested interest to push one over another. But okay, you've got to look at how long have they been doing it? What have they done for others? What is it they're advising? Are they telling you things not to buy? Or things to steer clear, or are they fighting for you? And I think that you have to, as a result, take that take that understanding from whoever it is that you're dealing with, or I'll call them brokers for now, and trust their faith, have faith in them. Sorry, but at the same time, do a little bit of due diligence. You'll soon know whether or not they're going to give you something that's good value, and then if you feel comfortable. Maybe on the next one or two, you won't need to look as much, because they've already done a lot of the due diligence and they know what you like. So
obviously we've been working together for a couple of months now, maybe longer.
Yeah.
Did you speak to any other agents before me?
I deal with a couple of agents even now.
Yeah, but before you dealt with them, did you speak to others?
So I've spoken to others.
Yeah. What was the problem with them?
There wasn't necessarily a problem. I would find that they would want to push you in certain directions very quickly before getting to know what you're about, who you are, etc. Again, it's the relationship building is there, and I understand that to a certain degree. A lot of the people that come over here that sell real estate, they're under pressure to sell things, and the art of sales, as I've always known since when I was in sales, is you don't talk much, you listen. And actually understand what your client wants, and then work out what's the best strategy for them by asking all these questions. And not many of them did that. So it's sort of, there's a short list of people that I would only work with.
Right. Yeah, I get that totally. Minesh, a few quick fire questions here, because I get a lot of questions from clients, and I just wonder whether, as an investor, you can help me. To anybody watching this or listening to this, that they can, I already have the questions. What's your answer to these questions? So one of the things is, as you drive around Dubai, or when you look at the internet or you speak to agents, there's an enormous amount of new properties coming onto the market. I think someone gave a statistic recently there's a launch every 19 hours this year so far. Yeah. What do you say to that?
I'm not worried about it. And I'll tell you why I'm not worried. Because first and foremost, His Highness has a plan for 2040, and that plan is to nearly double the population. And if you look at almost everything, if not everything he wants to do, he does, and he achieves. If I look at the appetite towards issuing visas here, it's become easier and easier just in the short space of time that I've looked into it. So I think that it steers you towards that way, or to suggest that, yeah, I can see how he's going to do it. If I look at Western countries, okay, and I don't like to talk bad about all the West, but they're broke. They don't have any more money left. So all they're going to do is they want to stay in power. So how do you stay in power and fix a problem of not having enough money? Well, try and tax the people that have done well. And that doesn't mean to say that they have to be multi-millionaires and billionaires, but even in the UK, for example, if you're earning, say, 100 grand or more, you're clobbered. So I can see more and more people feeling that this is not worth it for them, and I can see people moving over here more and more. And the other interesting thing that I think and I observe is it just the lifestyle here that's portrayed on YouTube and TV shows of all the glitz and glamour of Dubai? Is that all it is here? And I found, having lived here now for 4 months, you can live a normal life. If you want that, you can have it. But you could be here at a reasonable amount of income and be happy. And I can see that's why I think more people will come here. So I'm not worried about oversupply, because I think there will be more and more people coming over, not just from the West, but in recent times there was even talk of India bringing in inheritance tax, which isn't there now. Modi, who's been re-elected, isn't a fan of it, but how long will he stay in power? And when that changes, you're going to have another influx of people coming over from India. So I'm not worried about supply. And Dubai is still, I think, in its infancy compared to when we'll look at this in 10 years' time. Compared to even now, we'll say, "Oh my God, we didn't think it would become this," but I can see it happening.
Mm-mm. No, I couldn't agree with you more. Another objection I get is, it's very expensive.
Well, it's not cheap, okay, but anything good is never cheap. But at the same time, if you compare it with the sort of major cities that people go and live in, your Londons, your Singapores and New Yorks, etc., it doesn't even scratch the surface. I think Dubai's, I don't know what number they are, but it's way down outside the top 10 in terms of price per square foot.
In terms of property, I think we're sort of, depends on which report you look at, somewhere in the hundreds. And I think the latest one I saw were about mid-70s.
Yeah. Now, add to the fact that, there was a recent Henley report that was done, and they did, I saw it last year, looking at, where are high net worth individuals leaving from and going to. The UK was the number one in terms of people exiting, and the number one place to come to was the UAE. So again, if you look at the price and what people will pay, it depends on what you want. If you want, extravagance, sure, even in London, you could go Kensington, Chelsea, and you pay a fortune for a flat or a house. That same property here will not cost you as much, but it just depends, how do you want to live? But it's not as I don't think it's extortionate.
No. What about day-to-day costs?
Day-to-day costs, look at, for example, fueling a car. It's a third of the price, at least at this point. Sure, there's mileage you can rack up on your car, but it's a third of the price. Look at your everyday costs, like you might take a cab. It's like a fraction compared to the UK. Look at your energy bills. Again, fraction of what we'd pay in the UK. Yeah.
Really? Because a lot of people here complain about the cost of
go
their
and try
bills.
living back
Utility
in the UK,
bills.
and you'll see it post the whole Ukraine matter going on with Russia. Look at the energy bills there.
Really?
It's through the roof. And I feel for the people that are having to survive, because they've just about made some money. Right. Then they're taxed on it, and with what they've got left, they've got to pay their fuel bills. People don't know how they survive. And here, you're earning, the tax isn't there. Certain things are more expensive here, like, for example, food in supermarkets can be more expensive if you want, say, the brand stuff that you're used to. But on the whole, eating out is relatively cheap. Again, you can go to the creme de la creme and pay a fortune. But again, you could do that back in the UK as well.
Yes, you can. Another thing that everybody quotes reasons for moving to Dubai. I know one of the reasons you've moved here is because of tax. Mm-hmm. And I just wonder if you'd like to explain a little bit about that in terms of your business, the reasons why you're actually here. It's not just about having a more pleasant life.
Like I said, I don't think there's there will. Well, for people moving here, it's never going to be just one reason. I think for someone to leave a country where they've lived in all their life, it takes more than one thing, right? Because there's things that you're going to sacrifice. For example, friends and family that you may not see as much. But I looked at the factors like health, tax, and in terms of tax, I actually sat there yesterday to look at the differences, and I looked at corporation tax. Then I looked at, back home, if you've got a company, a business that's trying to make its way, you're going to employ people. You've got to pay the employer's tax, the employer's NI contribution. You've got the corporation tax if you've got money left over. Then you've also got within that business rates, which can be up to 50% of whatever it is, the unit that you're renting. You're not left with much. Then that's before even personal tax. So you're going to have experts that might argue with me, but my calculations show that basically 75% of your money is gone.
Wow.
Back home.
We've got 20% VAT. We've got 5%. What about property tax?
Property tax
here in Dubai.
I think that's relative because here you've got the 4% DLD charge. Yes. Back home you've got stamp duty, but the stamp duty changes based upon the value of the property, which isn't the case here. But yeah, I mean, other factors in terms of taxes. Just imagine you've made the money you have. You've paid all your taxes. Now you've got to pay your council tax. Then you've got to pay fuel duty. And if, God forbid, you're like me and you smoke and you like a pint, you're clobbered that way. So you're not really left with much. So it does make you wonder. Then you're thinking, okay, if I'm paying all the taxes that I am, then why is it that people are struggling to survive back home? Because I'm giving the money that I make over and it never gets to the right people, in my opinion. Some can argue with it, but, I just think is what they've done with it. And here, at least it gives me the choice, because my plan ultimately is, once I've sold everything, is do a lot more philanthropic work and choose myself of where the causes that I want to give to.
Very good. So a lot of people moved here because of tax, as we've discussed.
Yeah.
But the big thing that I'm hearing all the time now is about safety.
Yeah.
Can you give what's your experience of the safety aspect here in Dubai? You got your mother here, you got your dog here, etc.
Well, put it this way. I think again, I hark back to the 80s, back home. Okay, when I was a kid, we could go out by ourselves and maybe we'd get up to no good, but we'd enjoy ourselves until the early hours and come back and we wouldn't have a problem. In the UK, if I had kids now, I couldn't let them out because I don't know what's going to happen. The safety is a concern. And while I've lived here, it's interesting because, I'll take the walk I do to the gym or the cafe and I'll see kids going to school by themselves on these scooters and walking and all sorts. And I think that doesn't happen back home anymore.
Really?
You just don't see it. So definitely there's that factor there of safety, and I can see it and I can understand how people feel concerned, particularly if they've got elder members of the family or kids or even themselves. I mean, you can't walk in London now with a nice watch or anything nice and not expect anything to happen. Odds on something's going to happen. If not today, then tomorrow. Whereas here, you can. You've got that freedom. You
can't use your mobile phone, I understand, walking around in London now.
Exactly. Yeah. You see, so look at these factors. It never used to be as bad as it is now.
Yes.
And I'm hoping it will change back.
Yeah.
Hoping is another matter compared to what the reality is.
it's such a shame. But look, I'm from the UK as well, and I would never diss it. It's essentially my home.
It's still home,
I consider
even for me.
Dubai to be my home, but
Yeah.
UK is definitely where my heart is.
For me, it's UK is still my home, and I love it to bits, and I would defend it vigorously. I just don't defend the people that run it.
Right.
That's
Fair
where
enough.
I have a problem.
On that note,
Yeah.
Minesh, I think we've come to the end. And I really thank you for this.
Welcome.
It's amazing. You're my first client who's actually agreed to do this. I've asked a few and they've been a bit shy for one reason or another. But yeah, really appreciate it. Amazing. And I look forward to many more conversations and dinners with you.
Yeah, it's been fun, and so may it continue.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.